What's going on, guys? It's Jono, and today we're going to be talking about array iterators and array aggregators in Make.com. If you guys don't know how to use these two tools, then you are definitely missing out, because this is going to definitely take your game to the next level when it comes to automating your whole business. In front of me, I have a workflow that we're going to be building out together step by step, walking through how you can use this iterator here in Make.com and then this aggregator. And then later, we're going to move on to this second workflow where I give you a practical example of how you can use iterators and aggregators in Make.com. Now, in this particular scenario that will be down below for free in the description, we build out a test document like this in PandaDoc, right? So it automatically adds in custom variables like your first name, last name, the company, all of that kind of stuff. And then you can actually program in line items onto a particular invoice and send that off to a client. And the cool thing about this is that the line items can be fully customized. So for example, on those line items, you can add in taxes, you can add in discounts, you can also remove line items that don't exist, right? And you can add in quantity, for example, and all of that kind of stuff. So it's really, really powerful, and it gives you the flexibility to really be able to generate an invoice with the maximum amount of flexibility possible. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in learning about, let's dive into it. Now, what I want to do is first of all talk about what an array is and what an iterator is and what an aggregator is. But just so you guys are aware, if you go into these three dots in Make.com, you can actually click import blueprint, and the two blueprints that I'm going to have in this particular lesson today are going to be down below for free. You can just download them and then upload them straight into Make.com and start using them practically immediately. So don't forget to do that in case you're interested in using these blueprints. Okay, sweet. So let's talk for a second about what an iterator and what an aggregator is. So this is a simple flowchart that I created, kind of breaking it down, right? So let's say, for example, we have three clients, right? We have John, we have Jane, and we have Alice or Elise. I think it's Alice. And what we want to do is maybe we want to just really send all three of these people into a Google Sheet, right? So we want to send them into a Google Sheet where we have their name, we have their email, we have the price they paid and the date they paid that on, and what membership they have and the tags that are associated with that client, right? So right now we want to do that. The problem is that we're getting data in what is known as an array. And what an array looks like is up here. An array is denoted actually by the square brackets, right? So this array is called clients. And this clients array is an array of objects, and it contains three objects. And I'm going to go slowly just so you guys understand this, because this is fundamental for you guys to really take your Make.com game to the next level. Now, when it comes to what data structure this is called JSON. I do have a course that breaks down what JSON is in Make.com, how you can use it and how you can leverage it. So if you haven't watched that, please go ahead and watch that in case you're confused on what JSON is. But essentially, we have an array, and there's an array of three objects, and each object represents a client. The first client is named John Doe. The second client, and I'm actually going to try and zoom in here just because that seems a bit small. The second client is Jane Smith, and I just actually captured that too here just so you could see it clearly. And these objects represent clients, and it gives us all the information that we have on that particular client. So we can see John Doe spent $123, and their email is john.doe@example.com. The purchase date was the 16th of August, 2024, and their membership status is gold, and then they have tags associated with them. They're a loyal customer, high spending, and VIP. And then same with, for the next client, we have Jane Smith, and the price she spent is $789. This is their email, purchase date, membership status, and tags. Now, that's all cool, right? But the issue is that all of that information is kind of bundled together, right? And we need to separate it out so that we can iterate or go through one client at a time and push them into a Google spreadsheet, right? So we iterate through John first, and then we iterate through Jane, and then we iterate through Alice. So we're going through one Object is what the programming term would be, but this, you can really refer to it as a client. So we're going through John first, we're iterating through John, and then we're adding him into this spreadsheet, right? So if we were to kind of quickly do that and run the scenario, we iterate through John, then we iterate through Jane, and then we're also doing Jane again. But I'm gonna go ahead and just delete these, and we're going through them one at a time. So if you think about an array, take this for example, we have 5 different people. Let's say client A, B, C, D, and E. So we start by going through client A first, and then we go through client B, then C, then D, then E, right? And then once we've gone successfully through every single one of those clients, we're gonna wait until all the clients are done. And once they're all completed, then we can bundle them back together in an object or an array like this. And that's called aggregation in make.com, right? So we're aggregating all of those clients together. We're taking John, we're taking Jane, we're taking Alice, or Elise, or however you want to call it, and we're merging them all back together. So that instead of them being individual here, we're bundling them back into an array, which is denoted by the square bracket at the start and at the end with the name clients, okay? So that, in a nutshell, is what arrays are and how they work. They're just a fancy way of saying a list, right? It's a list of different things. So now let's move on to how we can actually use arrays in make.com. And I'm actually going to walk through this scenario together just so that you guys can get the maximum benefit out of this. So we're going to create a new module here. And what this module is going to be is we're going to start with JSON and parse JSON. Now, the reason why we're starting with parse JSON here is just because we're just going to load in this client object, right? So usually what would happen is in your CRM, or you might be sending data from a CRM, right? And you're going to receive that data and it's going to be nicely formatted for you to use, right? But just to bypass that, I'm just going to create parse JSON so we have something to work with here. We're going to ignore the warning and run it anyways. And when we look at the output here, we can just see, right, in this case, there's JSON, right? So clients equals first client is John, second client is Jane, third client is Alice, third client is Jane. We can see we have a duplicate here, right? But the output is something a lot more user-friendly, both to likely yourself and also the make.com, so that we can use this. So we're parsing that JSON into something that we can use in make.com. And now we can see the clients. And then in the clients, we have client 1, which is John, and client 2, which is Jane. And we can reference all of these particular keys for every single client. So we can reference their name, the price they spent, their email, the purchase date, so on and so forth, right? Now, the thing is let's say we wanted to get out Jane's email, for example. Like, let's just create a new variable, and we're gonna do something called set a variable here, and we're gonna do Jane's email. And then we put in here, and we map down to the email here, right? And we click OK. Let's say we wanna get Jane and John's email. Well, we can't do that. We can only get John Doe's email, because what we're doing is we're just going through the first version or the first client in that array, which is John Doe. But we want to go through John Doe, we want to go through Jane Smith, and we want to go through Alice, right? And get all of those people so that we can go through individually and then send them to make.com. So what we need to do instead is we need to use an iterator. And if we go from flow control into the iterator, what we can do is we can just pass this client's object in here. And now if we click run, we're going to go through each one of the objects or the clients one at a time. So here we can see the bundle is John Doe, and then bundle 2 is Jane Smith, bundle 3 is Alice Johnson, and Jane Smith again. Whereas in the previous step, we could only get one email, right? Which obviously is not good. So now what we may want to do is we may want to send these guys into a Google Sheet, right? So the next step we can do is we can add them into Google Sheets. And one of the most powerful ways, at least I use iterators, is just exactly this, right? It's just passing information from make.com into Google Sheets, right? Just so that I can display the information or create a database that I can store it and all that kind of stuff. So this is probably, at least for me, what I use Iterators for at least a good 60 to 70% of the time is just to push information into Data Studio or Google Sheets for each individual client or object, or however you want to call it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do that. So let's do Google Sheets here. And we're going to add a row. And we'll go ahead and add the row. And we're just going to choose the right account. And from there, we are going to select the right spreadsheet, right? How we select the spreadsheet is, oops, I just need to refresh this, is the ID here between the two slashes, right? We can copy that and then paste it into the spreadsheet ID. It's going to load it up, and you have to select the tab that you want or the sheet name. Because we only have one, we're just going to select sheet 1. This is by default, by the way. You don't have to change anything here. And then we have name, email, price, date, membership status, and tags, right? So all we have to do is map accordingly from that particular client into that particular field, right? So we have, you know, name, email, price, date, membership status, tags. We want to make sure John Smith's name goes here, Alice goes here, Jane goes here, so on and so forth. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go into names. We're going to just add the name here. And then for the next column, we're going to add email for email and price for price. And we're going to add date for date. So let's just see here. Oh my gosh. It's like right in front of me too. I know it. Well, that was super embarrassing. I literally had to pause the video there to find date, which was like literally right in front of me. Okay, sweet. And we've got date, and we can do membership status, and then we can lastly do tags. Okay, sweet. So we'll close this out, click OK, run this once, and we're going to run through it. And we just added all of these people, which is pretty cool. But the thing is maybe we don't want 2 Jane Smiths here, right? Maybe we just want 1. So what we can do is through this iteration, we can actually add a filter in here. And we're going to say that we want to, first of all, filter anyone that doesn't have a price associated. So maybe we just want to filter out anyone who's on a free plan right now, right? So what we can do is we can filter based on the price equals 0. So we'll do price is less than or equal to 1. Okay. And we've set that up. We can save this workflow. We're going to come back and delete all the data here and try this one more time. So let's go ahead and do that. Run the scenario. Okay. So it looks like we actually did this in the opposite way. So we'll just do price is greater than or equal to 1. We'll come back, delete this, and try it just one more time. Okay, sweet. So we added 3 separate rows to this sheet here. John, Jane, and Jane, right? So that's pretty cool. So now we have a sheet where we effectively, well, we have 3 values, and we remove the value that doesn't have any price associated with it. But maybe what we also want to do is we want to deduplicate this, right? So maybe what we end up doing is we just make sure to deduplicate Jane so that she's not in here twice. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to come back into this iterator section here. And if we click on here and we go into this tab right here, this is for arrays, right? So these are built-in functions that you can use on top of arrays. So there's a lot of different things that we can do here. But what we want to do for the purposes of this particular function, or for this particular step, is we want to only grab distinct values, right? So if there is 2 Janes, we're going to remove the second Jane so that there's only 1, right? And we're going to click OK, and we will remove the second Jane in here. And we're actually going to go through these later in this video and just kind of recap how you can use functions on arrays and you know what these functions mean and all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and run this one more time, and you'll see that we only added 2 separate people here. We didn't add Jane twice, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these rows. And now we have John Doe and we have Jane Smith in this particular spreadsheet. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now let's say that we want to aggregate all of this information back together. Because right now, at this point in time, what's happening is it's adding John Smith. And then it's adding Jane Doe. But maybe we want to merge them back together into a particular array. And how you go about doing that is going back to the flow control and using an array aggregator. Now, there's a couple different ways that you may want to use an aggregator in Make.com. Personally, for me, the reason I use it is actually specifically for this particular scenario that I'm going to be linking down below for free. This scenario saves me more time than any other automation that I currently use out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of automation our entire team uses. So this is super powerful stuff, just because for me, I run an agency where we do DJ photo and video services. We have to send out quotes to clients all the time. Every single one of our sales reps sends out about 3 to 4 quotes every single day. And this automates the generation of invoices, contracts, and proposals and merges those 3 documents into one. This would probably take our team likely like 30 minutes to do every single time, or between up to 2 hours. And it really saves people essentially 2 hours because it automatically generates the invoice. And with one click of a button, you can send that invoice out. So that's what I use it for. The other thing that you may want to use an array aggregator for is updating applications, or sorry, a database. So maybe you want to merge data together and then update a particular database, whether it's SQL, MongoDB. For most of you watching this, you're not going to be likely using databases, so that wouldn't be necessarily applicable. And then lastly, what you can use our aggregators for is maybe you're dealing with attachments, like for example, maybe a PDF file, or maybe you have whatever, right? And you want to essentially aggregate that data and send it into an email and send that off through Gmail, or maybe you want to use, merge different Dropbox files together and use that to send it somewhere else. So there's a couple of different options for you to use aggregators in, but for the most part, I usually stick with iterators. That's personally what I spend about 60 to 70% of my time doing. It's overwhelmingly iterators, but let's move on to aggregators here. So there's 3 components to this. There's a source module, there's a target structure type, and then there's aggregated fields. So the source module is where you're getting the data from, right? In this case, we're getting the data from the iterator step here, right? So all we have to do is select iterator right there. That is because when the data gets this array aggregator, if we kind of go back to this this visual here, you can see that we're going through each client one by one. We first start with John, then we go to Jane, then we go to Alice. And effectively, what we're doing is we're just breaking away each client one by one, and we're getting that data on a client level. We're not getting it on a level of all the clients together. We're getting it once they're breaking individually by themselves, right? So that is where the data is coming from. And then we have target structure type, right? So for right now, you're only going to have custom available. And the reason you only have custom available is because you need to have a particular module after this that this array aggregator can reference to understand the data structure that you want, right? But for right now, you can just see the aggregated fields. You can select all, you can click OK. Let's run this and take a look at what this gives us. Okay, sweet. So you'll notice here, there's two different runs of this module, one for John and one for I think it was Jane. And then there's only one run here. And this is merging those two people back together in an array, right? So we have an array with 2 objects. One object is for John and one object is for Jane. And now we're back together and we can see all of the information that we have here. John Doe, tags, email. We even have clients, right? So you probably want to get rid of that. So maybe what we could do here is just remove we can remove these 2 things here and just keep everything in the Google Sheets add row section here. And we'll click OK. And we'll run this one more time. Sweet. So we'll come back in here into the array, into one. And now we can see name, tags, email, any updates for the spreadsheet. We can pull information from both of these, and then row number sheets, all of that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool, right? We have all of the data for every single person, but now it's merged into one. Now, let's say that we want to change this data structure, right? Maybe we don't want it to be just spitting out all the data, right? Maybe we want to create our own. And how we go about doing that, right, is one of two ways. So either you put a module at the end, like maybe Gmail, for example, or maybe you have, in this instance, PandaDoc, and there's a predefined structure that you use, and you can use that predefined structure, right? So in this array aggregator here, it's using the target structure type PandaDoc. So PandaDoc is actually defining that target structure for us, right? But in this case, we don't have anything that we're pushing it to necessarily. So we have to create that target structure ourselves. So either we have a module that will create it for us, or we have to create it ourselves, one of the two. Now, at first, I'm going to talk about how we can create this ourselves, and then we can talk about the PandaDoc data structure afterwards, or whatever other whatever other app you're using. So we're going to add another module here, and we're going to use JSON. And this is not a required step, by the way. You don't have to define your own data structure. You can just use a custom and select the fields that you actually want to push past into this array aggregator. But we're going to go ahead and we're just going to define a data structure just so you can understand how to maximize arrays and aggregators in make.com. And we're going to create JSON. Now, in create JSON, we're going to have to essentially add or define a data structure ourselves, right, that we can reference in the array aggregator. So we're going to click add, and we're going to add items in here. So we can start off by giving this a name, right? So you can name your data structure. I'm just going to keep it my data structure. And then what we really need to do here is we need to have two things for this to work. We need to have an array, and we need to have an array of objects. So if we come back into this presentation here, you can see that we have an array, which is denoted by these square brackets, and then an object, which is denoted by these curly braces, right? So we have two objects referencing two people. The first object is the client John Doe. The second object is the client Jane Smith, and that's wrapped around an array. So anytime you're dealing with these aggregators, it should be pretty consistent. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I think it should be. And that is going to be an array, and then it has to be an array of objects, right? And what that object is it's going to be an array of objects, which is called collections in make.com. Right? So they just have slightly different terminology here, but a collection or an object is the same thing. And it's also the same as just saying, hey, you know, this, oh my gosh, I got to zoom in here again. This person right here, right? Jane Smith is an object or a collection in make.com. It's all kind of the same thing. So we just need to change the type of this array into a collection here. And then what we can do is we can add in any of the fields that we want. Now, when it comes to a collection, I'm going to keep going back and forth here. We can have key value pairs, right? So a key would be name, a value would be Jane Smith. So every client that you'd ever deal with is going to have a name, right? They'll probably have an email, probably have a phone number and all that kind of stuff. But so the key will stay the same, but the value for every single person will change, right? So your first client might be Jane Smith, the second client might be John Doe, then Bob, and then Jerry, and then so on and so forth, right? So we're just defining key value pairs here, and every key value pair might have a different data type. So it could be text, it could be a number here, it could be text for an email string, it could be a date field for the date, text for the membership status, and then for tags, it could be an array, which is just a list, right? So we have a list of, in this case, two things. We have a list of tags. The first tag is a return customer. The second tag is mid-spender. So let's go ahead and let's set that up here. So I'm gonna just merge this over here. The first one is gonna be name, and then this is going to be a text, and all of this stuff you can just leave default. You can change it if you want to, but for the purpose of this, we're just going to leave it as default. Do you want a default value? Probably not. Is this required? Probably not. Is it multi-line? Probably not. Most of the time I don't touch this kind of stuff. And then there's also an email, and there's also a price spent. And this is going to be a number, right? And then the next thing is going to be purchase date, and this is going to be a date. And then we're going to go on to membership status down here. That will be a text field, membership status. And then I think there's just one more here, and that is tags, right? So tags, and let's just say, so this is an array in itself. Okay, sweet. We can save, and then we can save this by clicking OK. We don't have to change anything there. And then coming back into the array, it's not going to give us a target structure type because we need to run this through first. And then once we run this, we should be able to reference it now. So it's still not being referenced. All right, so the problem actually that I encountered is that I didn't structure this properly. So we're going to go ahead and edit this. And it shouldn't be a collection at the top. For whatever reason, I thought I created an array, a collection of, or an array of collections, but it appears that I didn't. So we're just going to go through this one more time. So we're going to make sure that it's an array of collections here. So an array of customers. So we're going to put name, and that's going to be a text field. And then we're going to put email address, which is also a text field. And then price, which is going to be a numbered field here. And then we're going to have date purchased, which is a date field, date purchased. One more time. This is going to be a date field. And then we're going to have membership status, which is a text field. And last, that we have tags here. Okay, sweet. Awesome. This is going to be an array. Okay, awesome. And what you could also do is literally just copy the JSON from here into here if it doesn't work, and then it should have the correct target structure. So we'll go ahead and run this. Let's just see if that works again. Target structure, okay. So I can't seem to get it right. I'm just going to copy this over, and we're going to create a JSON file here, and instead we're going to click add, generate, and then just paste this in here and click save, and it should be good to go. We're going to click OK, and the target structure is right here. So we can go ahead and choose that target structure. I'm just going to delete this one for now. And okay, cool. And the name, we can just map this from this iterator here, right? So once again, we're going through each person one at a time, or we're going to grab their individual information here. So we'll go ahead, map all the corresponding fields, name to name, price spent to price spent, email to email, purchase date to purchase date, membership status to membership status. And then tags, we're going to click this map here, and we're just going to add the tags in here. Okay, sweet. So that's good to go. We can click run here, run anyways. And now we've aggregated everything back together. We have two clients here, Jane and John, and all of their information is together now, right? Very similarly to how we started this. It started in JSON form. Now it's back to JSON form. We aggregated it back into an array. There's a couple things that I want to do here though. Maybe for this part, we want to say, hey, these guys have paid, right? So what we want to do is we want to add a tag onto this person saying, hey, this person is paid. And how we can do that is by going into the functions here, into the array functions specifically, and we can do add here, right? So we're going to copy the tags and we're going to separate it. And you can see the description there, add, and you have to include the array and then additional values you want to add on top of it, separated by a semicolon. So we're going to add that semicolon in, and we're going to say paid here. Okay. So what's going to happen is now when we run this, it's actually going to, and I'm going to ignore these warnings, it's going to add that tag in there. So we go into the array and we go into tags. This now has paid on it, which wasn't there before. So that's pretty cool. So we can add things to arrays as well. And let's say, for example, we also realize, well, man, this pricing seems really weird. It's like there's 3 decimal points, right? So maybe we want to round that. So how we can go about rounding that is coming into the price spent, and we're going to add another formula here. This isn't necessarily a array formula, but we're going to do round, and we're going to copy and paste this in here, and we're going to multiply this by 100. So multiply it by 100, and then we're going to divide it by 100. And this is going to round it to 2 decimal points. So by default, the round function rounds to 2 decimal points. But what we want to do is multiply it up and then divide it back down so that it only has 2 decimal points. So we can go ahead and do that, and we'll click run. That's going to remove the 3rd decimal point there. So we can take a look. And sweet. So we've also gone ahead and done that. So lastly, what we can do here is we can just clone this, and I'm going to show you guys a couple other functions that we can add on to arrays, right? There's a lot of different things here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this out, and we're going to add in the array here. So what we could do, for example, is we could look at the keys, the length of the array. We could slice, we could get distinct. Right? There's a lot of different things here. So let's run, and I'm going to walk you through what these all mean. So, and these are just a few of them. The length is how many items are in an array. Well, we have John and we have Jane. So there's 2 people in this array, and there's 2 collections specifically for those 2 people. So the length is 2. The keys here are 0 and 1. So every array starts with 0, and then it works its way up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And just in this case, the keys are 0 and 1, but you can name the keys whatever you want them to be. Slice is just essentially removing removing certain objects from an array or certain elements from an array. In this case, we set the slice, I believe, to 1. So what is happening here, just to kind of go over this, is it returns a new array containing only the selected items. So it's going to find whatever is in the position 1, which technically is 2, but array start is 0 and 0 and 1. So that's the second position. It's going to take that, right? And it's going to return whatever is in the second field there. And then distinct is just removing any duplicates, right? So those are a couple functions that you can use on arrays, right? And there's tons of other things that we can do here. Just kind of opening this up. Let's take a look here. We can join certain arrays together. We can get the keys. We can merge 2 or more arrays. That seems pretty similar to the join. Okay, so essentially the difference between join and merge is that join is joining text strings together. So for example, you might have the name of the client Jane and John, and you're merging those text strings together into one. So it'd be like the weirdest name ever, John Jane. And then merge is actually just merging particular arrays into one array. And in terms of contains, it's going to return a true or false value, right? So if you find a particular value in that array, so say, for example, you're looking for the name John, and John exists in there, it'll return true. If not, it'll return false. This is great for if or else statements, right? And then remove, you can remove certain things from an array. You can add certain things to an array. Maps is to find specific nested values deeper in the array. Shuffle is randomizing the order. Sorting is by sorting by, so let's say, alphabetically by name. Reverse is reversing the order of the array. So if it goes John and then Jane, it would go Jane and then John first. First is the first item in the array. Last is the last item in the array. Flatten, I don't know off the top of my head. Distinct is just removing any duplicates, and then deduplicating, I believe, is removing any text duplicates. So if there is 2 tags, for example, and there's 2 tags and they both say paid, for example, to remove one of the paid out of there. To collection converts an array into an object. So for example, it would convert this array here into an object like this. Let's just make sure converts an array containing objects with key value pairs to a collection, and then to an array, my apologies there, converts a collection into an array of key value collections. So that is essentially it, but I'm just skimming through this at a very high level. I'm actually going to be creating another video kind of going through all of these individually because it'll take me a long time to go through that, and I believe it needs a deeper explanation than just me kind of rambling on really quickly here. And then what we're going to cover lastly is this workflow that we created a PandaDoc agreement. So in this workflow, essentially what's going on is we're creating this beautiful agreements. And this is something, guys, that you could literally create in 5 minutes. It would be, well, once you have PandaDoc up and running, because this is just a template that we're using, and then you can copy the blueprint, paste it, and it should be working pretty much right away. You can add in custom fields here. Like you could say, hey, this document was created by yourself, and then it's addressed to a particular client, and whatever fields you want to add in here, you can very easily with Make.com, automating the whole proposal, contract, and invoice portion of the document. And then we can also customize these line items in this table down below. There's a couple parts to this. Every pricing table has 2 parts. So there's sections, right? So for example, landscaping services and snow removal services. And then within the sections, there's line items, right? So for landscaping services, you might do like grass cutting and then hedge trimming, for example, right? And those are 2 separate line items that you're charging. So you can have many different line items for a section and multiple different sections in a pricing table. So when it comes to this, and we're going to be skimming quickly, and I'll be covering this more in depth in a later video, but we have a starting point of a trigger, which is just getting a document. Now, the only this serves absolutely no purpose, by the way, this starting point. This is only just to debug and test it quickly. So then instead of having to trigger this workflow in another app, we're just doing it immediately by clicking the start button, and it automatically triggers it. If for most cases, you're going to be getting this data from either your CRM or you're going to be getting it from a form, right? So the idea is you get off a sales call with somebody, you get the information, you automatically generate this document. You're going to get that, you're going to send it in here, and then you're going to create JSON. Now this JSON I didn't create, I got it from PandaDoc. There's a predefined way that you have to create pricing tables in PandaDoc. You just copy, you just essentially add that JSON in here, and then how you go about doing that, just so you can see JSON, and you just create JSON, and you'd essentially add and generate, and you dump in the JSON that it gives you, and that will be in the blueprints down below in case you guys want to take a look at that. And with that JSON code, you can essentially create as many line items or sections as you want, right? So within the line items, which are also rows here, you can add as many as you want, and then there's multiple rows in a table, right? So that's pretty cool, right? So you can just click add item down here or add section down here and add multiple line items or multiple sections. And then we're going to parse that information just so that it gives us something that's more user-friendly than just this bulk line of text here. So you can see all of the sections and options and all that kind of stuff broken down. All the information is here, right? So we're going to take that parse data and we're going to iterate over the section. And then once we iterate over the section, we're going to iterate over every single row, right? So for example, we might iterate through landscaping services, and then afterwards we'll iterate through snow removal services. But what we'll do is we'll iterate through landscaping services, and then we might iterate through the line items next, which would be, lawn mowing and then hedge trimming, right? And it would create 2 separate line items here. And we'd remove any line items that either don't exist or don't have a price associated with it, or the price is 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take those line items and bundle them together into an array, and then just provide the values, map those values back in. And then we're going to essentially combine those sections back together with the titles and the section rows and all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to send that document into PandaDoc, and we just map the array of the sections and rows and all that kind of stuff that we created in the section part here. And then it will automatically create, in a matter of like 2 seconds, this document here that you could automatically send to your clients. So that's really cool. This saves me more time than anything else in my business. Like personally, it saves me maybe 30 minutes per time I need to create this agreement. And we have multiple sales reps on our team, and they do about 4 quotes a day, which is about 2 hours per person per day. So that's really cool. Now, that's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do like content like this, make sure to subscribe down below. Make sure to also give me a thumbs up. And if you have future ideas on content suggestions, leave it in the comments down below. Thanks once again, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.